everyone. How are you doing today? You good? All right. You guys go have a seat. You can have a seat. You guys can have a seat too. Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica H. Maurer. I'm going to be your moderator for today's panel, where we're going to be talking about coaching trends for 2026. Sound good, everyone? I want to introduce you to my lovely panelists today, everybody. Do you guys already know these people? A couple of you. I can see some head nods out there. Everybody, this is David Van Daff, and he is a respected leader in the industry. He is really pushing us forward in education in so many different ways. I'm going to let him introduce himself in just a moment to tell you even more about all of the amazing things he does. And this is Faith Lynn Durla. Did I say that right, Durla? Yes, Faith Lynn is an IFBB pro. She's a model and she is a business mogul. And then, of course, this is Dan Metcalf. Dan, you are a globally recognized performance coach, and he is going to tell you even more about how you can move your clients and yourself forward in business. Everybody give them a round of applause as we get started. All right, so this first question is going to be a little bit of an introduction. You're going to get to introduce yourself, and I also want you to tell us, what do you see as the biggest trend or the biggest evolution in 2026 for coaching? Sound good? All right, Dan, I'm going to start with you then. Dan, will you please introduce yourself and tell us the first thing that comes to mind when we say trending in 2026?
Yeah, so thank you so much for being here first off, and I appreciate your time because time becomes money. I want to just tell you a little bit first. I created a product back in 2018, went through a lot of growth struggles, but we did $13 million of sales in my first 16 months. So I learned a lot about business, how to grow, how to go, but everything that happens to us is a gift. I was playing the lead in Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber shows. Some of you may know him from Broadway. I had an accident during a performance on stage. I was paralyzed and the doctor said I'll be disabled for life. Well, that was a gift because it made me understand more the power of the body, the power of the mind, and what's possible when we fully commit. But then in 2018, I was out on a bike ride, got hit in the head by a metal pole at 22 miles an hour, knocked unconscious for about 3 minutes, part of my brain died. I had to learn to talk again, learn to function, went through PTSD, saw a lot of struggles, and came back even stronger. So I'm very proud to be here today. And as far as where I think the industry and the growth opportunity comes, we'll talk more about it with other questions. But mindset. Mindset is such a powerful tool. It's critical to achieving goals, both from visionary, as far as we know Arnold Schwarzenegger used to lay in bed and visualize how his biceps would look. Mindset and the focus we've lost a little bit, but I think the influence of social media is really going to impact the industry because we now have clients that think they know, but they really need you to help them achieve their goals.
That's a great answer. All right, Faith Lynn, give us a little bit about yourself and tell us what you think the evolution of coaching is going to look like in 2026.
Of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Faith Lynn Durla. I am an IFBB Pro Fit Model athlete. I also own my own personal training business strictly online at the moment. And that kind of alludes into what I feel that is the current trend coming into 2026 is we live in a highly digitized world. So navigating the world of AI and also implementing AI into the fitness coaching acumen.
All right, DVD, bring us home. It is not yet on. You want to try?
Do I need a microphone?
But in this room you do, right? Here, there you go. We'll flip
you.
them around.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Van Daff. Most of you that I know me as DVD. Very rarely do I ever hear David, so if you yell that name out, I'm probably not going to turn. I am the Vice President of Industry Development and Public Affairs for the National Academy of Sports Medicine. In October, it will be my 30th year in the fitness industry, primarily working with personal training, fitness operations, education, etc. With 30 years, I've seen a great evolution of the professions that we're talking about now, trainer, coach, instructor, etc. The biggest thing that I have seen recently and see continue to evolve going forth into 2026 and 27 is holistic wellness. Gone are the days of programming templates and standardization tied into a personal trainer services. Client expectations have gone through the roof. Kat talked about it a bit with nutrition and supplementation and sleep, but add into that lifestyle and behavior modification, psychology, mental health, etc. We are not selling sessions, we're selling programs that are tied to goals.
We're going to stick with you because that's a great segue into our next question, DVD. Tell us about the skills necessary in order to really propel that evolution forward in 2026. What kind of skills are the coaches going to need?
Absolutely. Well, it starts with an education foundation. It expands beyond that into specializations. So many fitness coaches, personal trainers, etc., they start with that baseline education and feel like, okay, now I can appeal to a big enough demographic in order to be able to sell my services and grow my business accordingly. Special populations are big. Working with seniors, working with youth, understanding now in the days of weight loss medications and GLP-1s, how do we work with clientele? Working with sports-specific clients as well. You really need to expand your horizons in order to be able to grow. The two things that I talk about very often, especially in 2026, data literacy. So understanding all of the wearables, all of the information that is coming back, and also behavioral psychology, behavior modification, having empathy, understanding how to communicate, keep people motivated. Clients are looking for a lot more than just standard programming, spotting and cueing, rah-rah motivation, etc.
I think that's such a good point that we're finally moving past being sets and reps and moving more into that behavioral lifestyle. And how many of you guys out there agree that you're running your business more on connections and community than you are on just sets and reps? Yeah? And Faithlyn, tell us a little bit more. When you said you're really seeing us move into a digital space, how are you using digital training to bring in some of these behavioral changes that we're seeing?
Yeah, I would say that I'm using digital training to bring in and cultivate more of a community by sharing stories and being vulnerable and being able to platform certain clients who, of course, are comfortable and really highlight that what many problems people may be dealing with, other people are experiencing as well. And when you develop that empathy and that space of sympathy for people, it allows people to be like, hey, I feel a little bit more motivated, or this allows me to pursue my fitness journey in a more serious fashion. And I believe that with digital space and social media, there's also a lot of data out there. And it's our due diligence as coaches to constantly educate ourselves, constantly go for accreditations. So that way we are providing correct and proper information to our clients.
I love that. So we've had two of our guest speakers now really talk about education to move us forward. Tell us, Dan, a little bit more about that mindset part that you brought up before and how we can be more educated as coaches in order to help people change their mindsets.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate, like I said, to understand I had to go in and become educated for myself because doctors turned around and just made me a statistic. I'm not a statistic. Nobody is. But I had to take that on. And education, as you both talked about, is critical. So I want to test you if I can. Is that all right? Okay. How many of you here understand the power of the brain? To what level? Okay, let me ask you a question. This is why I get excited, so I'm taking a minute. Okay, who here has heard of muscle memory? That's all? Nobody's... But if you have, put your hand up. You didn't put your hand up. You heard of muscle memory? There you go. Okay, how many of you believe in muscle memory? Put your hand up high if you really believe it. Okay, today, I want to teach you what I learned. It's going to go against what you believe. If you took a muscle, your bicep, cut it out and put it on a table, is it going to move? No, it won't. But if I put electrical impulses at both ends, that muscle will still contract even though it's not connected to your body because it has electrical wiring going through it. Now, if someone has going on out, and let's just say they've worked out, done 1 million bicep curls in their life, then they have a stroke and the wiring is disconnected to the muscle. Will that muscle still work? But it has muscle memory. Why is it not working? We're going to change the way we think today. But you don't have to agree. I'm just going to explain. The muscle moves because of the electrical impulse that goes into your body. That's coming from your brain. I think, I'm going to act, I do, the muscle reacts. So we have muscle repetition for strength, but the information that we give comes from the neurons of thought to action to physical action. And at that point, the muscle then will contract. We don't have muscle memory, we have neuron memory. You're going to learn this more and more. The muscle will react off of the neurons. This is just one piece of information. And when we take that and start thinking about how we're training, that would change how we approach the success of the person. And again, visualization, mindset, the way that we can think about what we want to be comes from the brain and feeds the body. So for me, that's, again, go back to education. I will keep my other answers shorter.
Well, oh, now we got both. Good job, guys. Tell us a little bit about the gaps that you're seeing that coaches aren't prepared for 2026. I'm going to let you take that one first, Dan.
I'll keep this one short. But there's a lot of gaps out there that's being revealed, I believe, in social media because there's a lot of misinformation being shared and people tend to jump on fads and they want the success. So I think there's three areas. We've got the old school that I love, which was go out and lift. There's something about it that's so empowering. Then we've got the other side of people that would take anything and do anything to look a certain way, knowing it's going to affect their, well, they don't know it's going to affect their health later on, but it will. Then we have science that's coming out. And when you can start mixing everything to do with peptides safely, right? Because there's good and bad out there. I speak in the biohacking world, not because I'm a biohacker. I see a lot of stuff out there. 80% is fake. So what you can do is educate yourself on different arenas to be able to get the results people want, but it has to start, what do they want and what's your power to lead them?
Yeah, to bounce off of that, I would say that really is the gap existing for coaches is we live in such a digitized world and we have so much overflow of media misinformation that what oftentimes clients are coming and have this interpretation of what they're hearing off of social media, whether that be Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and it's our responsibility to refine that information that they're receiving and laying out to us as a coach and let them know, hey, this is what is based on case evident research, and then move forward from there.
Great. And what about you, DVD? What do you see as a gap?
Great points by Dan and Faith Lynn. I would add to that, and I'll take a different approach on this because there are plenty of gaps. But the gap that I see consistently getting larger and larger is the business development in the coaching field. Trainers, coaches that come into an environment have the education, have the skills, have the passion, don't fully understand the aspects of building a business. And unfortunately, what we see in the industry, and I'm sure most of you in the room have seen this out of passionate people that get out of the industry because they find it very, very difficult to start progressively building a business, retaining clients, and being able to have enough on your paycheck to pay your rent and your grocery bill, et cetera. And there are two things that I would say factor into this that are gaps that need to be resolved. The first of which is confidence. And then that ties back into empathy and understanding. From a confidence perspective, when we look at the coaching community, when I look around the room here, these are all dedicated, disciplined people that take fitness and nutrition seriously. And it's very easy to think of the rest of the population being of the same mindset. And when you do that, you start looking at your own business going, all right, is this really worth $100 per session? Asking somebody to make a $2,000 commitment, et cetera, et cetera. But really, when you take a step back and you look at the rest of the community, the people that are passionate about getting results, they don't have the same mindset. They're depending upon a coach, a person, a friend that's going to step into their lives and get them motivated and get them onto a journey to finding a way to getting to those goals, a level of fulfillment and happiness. So when it comes to gaps, very often within coaching, it's a lack of confidence in the services that you're providing, and it's an understanding of the clientele mindset and knowing, okay, not everybody thinks alike. Not everybody has the same motivations, et cetera, et cetera. I'll leave you with one thing. I've always been an early morning workout person. How many work out early in the mornings? One of the things I love about it, I don't talk to anybody at all, but I know these people. You see these people every single day, right? And you understand who they are. They got out of bed at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and then they're there. And then every now and then, you show up to the gym at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or on a weekend, and you see this entirely different community that is working out in that type of fashion. It's easy for me to think of gym members at the 5 o'clock in the morning, but understand 90% of them are coming at later periods of time. Just an example of the differences in terms of mindset and understanding.
Which brings us to our next point, where we're going to talk really about personalization and how to use these trends that we're seeing starting to emerge for 2026 and really personalize what we're offering to our clients, because we know that personalization often leads to stronger retention. Wouldn't you agree? So let's start with you, Faithlyn. Tell us a little bit about these emerging trends and emerging evolutions in coaching and how that's going to really affect the personalization of the programs in 2026.
Coming from a coach myself and running my own coaching business, personalization and communication are the two key factors that I consider to be the key roles in my business. Whenever I'm onboarding a client, I actually have them track everything for 7 days. And so that includes tracking their lifestyle, their sleep, their nutrition, their water. And you might think, 7 days is a long time. Can't you have that same information from 3 days or 1 day? But the thing is I want to see their undulating habits, who they are from Monday through Friday. And usually 90% of the time 90% of my clients are lifestyle clients. And so they work high level, corporate level jobs. They're more disciplined throughout the weekdays, and then the weekends is when things usually hit the ceiling. And so I want to consistently monitor how their daily habits affect their lifestyle on a weekly and on a daily basis. I always tell my clients that the more data I have, the better. And the more data that I have, the more personalized I'm able to develop a plan for them. And in that situation, then the client not only feels like, hey, my coach is really listening to me. I'm not just getting a cookie cutter program or a template-based program. She's creating something personalized. And that's something that I pride in as a coach and as a business owner, is I'm not just handing out random programs. I go in, I look at all of their food that they've been tracking on the food journal on my app. I will manually calculate the macros and then kind of create an average of where their metabolic system is standing, and then develop a nutrition and a training program from there.
So you're using data a lot to help you with personalization.
So much data. And that's the great part about living in a digitized world and operating and trying to navigate the personal training business in a digitized world is there is all of this available data that we can keep instead of trying to keep things in notebooks or the old school way of just giving clients the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give you a program and I'm going to expect you to kind of fulfill it. At least now in a digitized world, I have my clients on an app. When they log workouts, they're logging it so I can manually see that they're staying accountable and also upload their programs. And one of those things that I had to navigate as a personal trainer was that for the first half of my career, I was a NASM CPT in person. So I was doing one-on-one training and semi-private training in Silicon Valley. So I was working with very busy working professionals. And when I moved down here to Orange County, now that I am an athlete, there are other aspects of my life that I have to give time to time-wise. And so moving to an online business seemed like the given answer. Now the question then is how do you retain those clients that you were training in person to now be online? Because of course, the connection that you have one-on-one, the conversation that we're having each other in person is very different from being on FaceTime or being on a phone call.
Yeah, that's such a great point. We're using technology to our advantage for that communication building,
Yes.
that community building. I love that. DVD, what do you think about the technology and data trend that we're going to see in 2026, and how does that relate to retention?
I think it's a great question. When I first thought about data integration, it was all about steps, right? It wasn't that long ago that it was steps. How many steps are you getting? And general population had this thought and idea of, if I get 10,000 steps, I'm going to get to all of my fitness goals. From a data perspective, the more that we know as a fitness professional, the better. Understanding how to utilize that data and technology is extremely important. Putting that all together from an accountability perspective. So if you have clients that are logging all of their food, they're putting in all their cardiovascular exercise, they are giving regular data updates that are coming back to the professional, the more interaction and the more understanding, the more valuable your services become. I said at the beginning, sell programs, not sessions. That ties into it. Selling a client on working with you 2 times a week, 3 times a week, but having a comprehensive program and an oversight and guidance that's tying into what you're doing 7 days a week instantly makes what you are delivering far more significant and far more valuable. So know everything you can about data, be able to explain the information that is coming as a result of the wearables or the apps and the logging and different things to that degree, utilize it to your advantage. Make it part of your comprehensive program.
Yeah, great answer. Being able to use that to really set yourself apart, right, as a trainer, that you're utilizing the trends of technology to kind of personalize things moving forward. Dan, what do you think about this trend we're starting to see with being more data-driven based personalization and programming?
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for trainers to elevate their game. Have any of you seen the Hume scale out there? The Hume that gives you more than just your weight. I personally use that. It's been great. Something like a small investment that you bring to your clients to try instead of maybe having to pay for the in-body or the different things that are there. It just makes it more personal. But I've been very fortunate to, like yourself, Faith, as well. I've trained about 70,000 people. And what I found, the number one way for retention is, first off, what is their goal? We sometimes think we know the answer to their health, but what do they really want? And then once we know what they want, we realize we're working for them. We're invested in their journey. And when we're working out, it's their time, not ours. And we know on social media, we're trying to get all the likes. We think if we make ourselves bigger, that people will want us more. But people just want to be seen. They want to be understood. They want to be feeling that you're invested in their journey. And if they feel that, they won't want to step away, provided you're still bringing up their journey. You're still focused on their journey, their goal. And online, we've got to remember, everyone comes to you because they have a problem that they can't solve themselves. That's the number one thing. They have a problem. They need to find someone that can provide the solution for them. And they come to you. You invest that, you'll be amazed. It's not just them you're retaining, it's their friends they're telling. And suddenly you become a hot commodity because you're solving something they need for their life.
Now, based off of what we just heard in the previous presentation, we know that sleep is something that we obviously need in order to live our healthiest and our happiest lives. Dan, what do you think about this trend of recovery that we're starting to see, where everyone's talking about sleep and massages, and how do you think we're going to start using that in 2026?
Yeah, again, I have a program, the 7 Pillars of Natural Health. Number 3 is sleep. Number 2, hydration. Number 1, oxygen, how we breathe. But I've noticed as I've aged, I spend more focus on my recovery than I do on my training. Because if I don't recover fully, I can't train the way I want, and I'm still beating 25-year-olds when I compete. I race bikes, which is my passion, because the focus now has to be recovery. We all know when you go and work out, you're not growing. You're breaking down the fibers in the muscle. It's when you recover, you get stronger. And if you look at the trend that's going on now, it's more about zone 2 training with some intensity than going hard all the time. Why? Because the body needs to recover to come back stronger. So I think there's a lot of things out there, recovery. The more you give to your client away from you, and when I say that, you're giving them information to come back stronger, the more they're going to want to come back because they feel great. It's not how hard you're working, it's how smart you're working.
And Faithlyn, how are you using the idea of recovery and being that big trend that we're seeing in 2026 with your clients and your athletes?
Recovery is key. It is so important. Sleep, stretching, making sure that you're getting adequate rest, that cortisol isn't high is the key for body recomposition and fat loss. I did want to include, and this is something that I am relatively new for, so I'm no expert, but as an athlete and getting into competitions and now competing at the pro level, I'm thinking about all aspects and all factors that are going to help me then not only be competitive in the sport, but also have longevity long term. And I did want to highlight one of my new coaches. Her name is Rebecca. She's in that table over there.
Hi, Rebecca.
She is an internal strength and mobility specialist, and I do feel that it is a very prominent aspect and niche that is emerging and will be trending in the fitness industry this year and moving forward. Being mobile and being functional is something that I feel that tends to get overlooked, especially for new trainers. And I was discussing with her yesterday, I was like, I feel like this should be a prerequisite almost before moving into more advanced things such as strength training or into things like powerlifting. I, as a coach, had this kind of aha moment during my session with her. It was like, this is something that should absolutely be a requisite as a part of the recovery category for clients.
Perfect answer. Do you agree, DVD? We're going to start to see a lot more mobility moving forward in 2026?
Absolutely. I'm going to take a different stance on this. Today is January 17th. So hundreds of thousands of people just got their last workout of the year, just quit and finished. And what I noticed very early on within the fitness industry is primarily what I saw, the people that quit their workouts were people that hated their workouts. They didn't get injured, but they developed exercise dread. They took on the no pain, no gain mindset. They had poor movement patterns that they never addressed. There was no recovery. There was no movement prep at all. You cannot maintain an exercise program if it is unenjoyable, it's dreadful, it's something that you will consistently look for excuses not to be able to do. And recovery, to me, one of the great things about it is it's become a component of our fitness programs that typically is very enjoyable. Before a workout, on off days, afterwards. And by integrating that in, it changes the mindset of that no pain, no gain. It's got to be hard. It's got to be a heavy sweat. And it integrates in and provides more fulfillment ultimately. And it keeps people working long-standing towards their goals.
You brought up a lot of good things about leaving behind certain aspects that we've really honed in on in the fitness industry, like no pain, no gain, or going hard consistently. Do you see that we're going to be dropping or leaving behind a lot more of those mentalities in 2026? Or what do you see as kind of growing past at this point?
I really do. You know, we talk about some of the dangers associated with media, social media, influencers, all of this information that's coming out that we get asked questions about. But I think people have developed a different mindset when it comes down to now what we call fitness and wellness. Used to just be working out, then it was fitness, and now it is fitness and wellness. And there is more of an understanding that it's physical health and it's mental health combined. And now components like nutrition and recovery and sleep and lifestyle have now become a part of this from a holistic perspective. So I do think that we are gradually moving out of that, hey, I've got to run on this treadmill. That was my biggest thing when I started in the industry, is that everybody would hop on a treadmill and they would try and run for 3 miles because that's what they did in high school. And they maybe made it a week. Say, I'm going to start 5 days a week. It'd become 3 days a week, 2 days a week. They were gone by January 17th. So this new mindset and this understanding, I think, has provided more cushion, especially for new people coming into our gyms, working with a coach, fitness professional, et cetera, et cetera.
And Faithlyn, what about you? What do you see us leaving behind in 2026? What do you see us really progressing forward and past?
Yeah, I would bounce off of that. I really do think that we're leaving that era of being specifically one niche. One thing that I did want to share was during the time that I was training out of Silicon Valley, I was working with a lot of busy working professionals, but more importantly, women. And from my experience of working with women who are in corporate fields, usually they are in their later 30s, early 40s. They're coming from a place of frustration, and that's because they're about to reach perimenopause in the near future. When women turn 35, they then begin to experience sarcopenia, which is the decaying of muscle tissue on their body. And so that affects a lot of things. That affects your metabolic health, that affects your hormonal health. And so they come to me and they're like, Faith, I don't understand. When I was 20, I could diet for a week and lose 20 pounds. Now I'm dieting for months on end and I can't seem to lose anything at all. And what I began to notice as I began to work with more and more corporate professionals is that there's this gap in the industry where there's not enough education for women in the age 35 and above. And I feel like that's something that we definitely need to address and something that we definitely need to highlight in the industry. And so my niche, moreover, is working with the perimenopausal woman, working with prenatal, postnatal, and really empowering a new branch. I would say the fitness industry tends to be a little bit more flooded with male-dominant perspectives and is a more male-dominant field, which all power. I love and I respect that. You know, my coach is a man. But I think that there does need to be more advocacy and more voice for women in the field.
I love that you brought up special populations. Yeah, absolutely. You can give her a round of applause. I love that you brought up special populations because DVD, you brought that up earlier as well. So Dan, if you would tell us a little bit about what do you see us kind of doing for special populations in the future? is there a such thing as special populations anymore, or is special populations just the general population at this point?
Great question. I think special populations is even more prevalent now than it was in the past. And that comes down to your specialization, because people are going to look for you. One of the things that, talking about leaving in the past, and as you talked about DVD in here, is we were all about programming. Now it's about behavior. So one of the changes that I made a few years ago, it's not about the time you work out, it's the quality that you work out. So if I want to make sure I'm getting the maximum gains and I've got 1 hour with a client, I want to specialize in what their goals are by not working out for an hour, but saying, what's that time going to give me to make sure they can then feel specialized in what I want to teach them or what they want? And that's obviously a combination. So for example, if I can't train you in 45 minutes to the level that can take you to where you need for that day, I'm not going to do it in an hour either. That 45 minutes, but I can take that 15 minutes to make sure that we're creating the behavior of a lifestyle that leaves you feeling special when you walk out. Not just they're going, okay, my session's over, thanks very much, next one coming in. But I take the time to sit and spend just a moment with you to say, what's the recovery? What could we do before the next session? And that allows you to become a specialist, because most people, we watch them, they're in, next client in. They're in, next client in. And if you can take that and go to specialization, I think you'll stand out in a packed gym. People will be curious, why are you doing it differently? Not for the sake of it, but because of the results you'll gain.
I think that's a great point to bring up, of how to make yourself really stand out in a crowd, especially as we're starting to see that people are coming back into the gyms in January. How do we keep them with us for longer? DVD, what do you think right now with coaches can do to really stand out in 2026?
Yeah, I'm going to go back on the programming. And we talked before about avoiding the programming templates, and these are my standard workouts, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the evolution of those workouts. It is consistently evaluating the progress associated with the client, looking at everything from a progression and a regression perspective, but then also tying it into excitement and fun. And all of us, if we went around the room right now, you could all go forth and say, I hate this exercise, or I hate working with these modalities, or I can't stand doing this type of cardiovascular fitness. Our clients are the same way. And so it's about evaluating what we're doing, how we're creating that programming, and then being able to customize it in such a way to where they're getting their goals, but at the same time, it's fitting their profile. I'm going to give one story that I always think back on when it comes down to this customized programming. I was part of the acquisition group of Crunch 25 years ago, like 2001, when it was 15 gyms. But they were killing it in personal training. And there were two guys, Randy Humola, John Mitchell, that ran that program, developed that program. In all of the gyms in New York City, they had boxing rings. And I immediately came in, I was like, why would you guys take up all this square footage for boxing rings? There's only a small population of people that want to box. And they were like, no, you're wrong. Just watch. Stay in the gym over the course of the day. So many of 90% of their clientele, all kinds of different demographics and ages and fitness levels, etc. They loved wrapping up their hands. They loved putting on gloves, hitting into focus mitts, etc., etc. They combined that with partner-assisted stretching, neuromuscular stretching at the end, because it felt really good after a workout. And so it had that level of excitement where it was the behavioral psychology of people like to do this. People like to lift free weights, by the way. They like to go back into the room. They like to try things that they wouldn't typically do on their own, but they want to see it evolve and grow progressively over time.
Yeah, that's awesome, because we're starting to see that kind of come back into the fitness space, aren't we? We are starting to ask people, what do you like to do? Yeah. And that will really make you stand out as a trainer. Faithlyn, do you have any other advice of how do you make your business or yourself as a coach really stand out in 2026?
It's going to sound so simple, but be authentic. That's really the driving force. In a digital age, like I keep on harping on about, you're seeing a lot of these major transformations and even ads for scaling coaching businesses. And I have my 2 cents on that, but I'm not going to cover that today. But in my opinion, being authentic, being relentless in communication with your clients, and I would say from a marketing perspective, really tapping into the intrinsic value. So As I've mentioned, my focus and my niche is more so on women, but also empowering them. So oftentimes they do come to me, they're either corporate level professionals or they're entrepreneurs. And so when I'm onboarding them to really provide a personalized experience and to give them a good first impression of me as a business and as a coach, is my very first question is how is you hiring me as a coach going to benefit you as a working professional and as an entrepreneur? I'm then asserting myself as me being the service provider and me working for them. And now they perceive it as I am helping them become so elevated on all aspects, because when you are healthy in your fitness journey and when you are healthy overall, that then reflects into your professional career and everything else.
That's awesome. I love how you're tying it into that personalization again. That's really going to make the coaches stand out. Dan, what do you think is going to be the thing that makes a coach really stand out in 2026?
Personal attention. I mean, it really is that when they're there, they're the only thing. The gym I train at, I watch the trainers, they're looking at their clock, they're looking at their piece of paper, they're kind of invested. When they're not training, there's no conversation, they're looking at what's coming up. You got to connect. We have mirror neurons, right? How we look at somebody and how we feel will be reflected back onto us. And other people notice, because they'll notice other trainers that are in there that are not giving that attention. When I was training at Gold's Gym many years ago, and I always got the people that were disabled or struggling or coming back from injury because nobody else wanted them. They were a liability. I can't show, but you get a woman walking in that looks great, all the guys and girls want her, or a guy that's super fit for a trainer. Why? Because people think that your impact created that body. But honestly, I saw some of those bodies get worse because the trainer relied on them to give them the standout. So I'll really go in and just say, really take the time to give the attention. And it may be hard sometimes because we get distracted, but if you're invested in their journey, realizing you're the unsung hero, you really are the unsung hero, people will notice and you'll have an incredible mirror neuron connection that leaves you feeling great and they're indebted.
I love it. So today we've covered a lot of what we're seeing in 2026, emerging trends, right? We've talked a lot about education. We've talked about the need to tie in recovery. We've talked about having personalized plans that make it fun for our clients in order to keep them. We've talked a lot about communication and making sure that we're really, like you said, having this authentic conversation with our clients to ensure they keep coming back for more. So guys, we're starting to run out of time, obviously, but I would like for you to tell us just one action item that you would recommend the coaches in these rooms take forward using all of these emerging trends that we talked about for 2026. DVD, we'll start with you. One action item.
Expand your education, which is the natural answer for me coming from National Academy of Sports Medicine, but really grow beyond basic certification. We talk a lot about special populations. Understand those special populations, how to become a viable resource for a broader demographic of clientele.
Awesome. Faith Lynn, tell us.
I would say consistently and deliberately find new and more improved ways to improve communication with your clients. So whether that means streamlining data, making sure that you're constantly assessing markers of improvement with them, making sure that they are staying accountable in their personal life. That level of interpersonal relationship with your client is what keeps that retention and also attracts quality clients that will stay with you year after year after year.
Awesome. And Dan?
Can I share a story real quick? Is that all right? Okay, I got to get up for this because I get excited. The thing that's going to make you stand out that you can take with you, actionable items, is believing in you. You have to trust you because so many of us get caught in a program that tells us how to be, but we feel there's something missing. Let me go back. When you were first conceived, that moment of conception, there were roughly 350 million sperm that were fighting for the egg. Some fell off. Some tried to get there, didn't have the strength. And a few of the strongest got to the egg. But the best of the best created you. Let me say that again. The best of the best created you. And yet, when we got brought up as kids, we suddenly started comparing, whether it's financial, activeness, all these different things, but we forget that we are super powerful. And when you start to believe in you and understand the power that you have, it's incredible. The night before I started my theater school, ballet, jazz, tap, I was a ballet dancer, and all the other stuff, my dad took me to see a show. It was called Starlight Express. Andrew Lloyd Webber show, his favorite show. At the end, I'd never seen a show before in my life. I'd always been a professional, footballer. And at the end, he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Oh, it was incredible. These people are demigods. Incredible." He goes, "One day you'll be in that show." And he said to me, "One day you'll be in that show." And I said to him, "No, I'll never be good enough." That was my thought. I'd never danced a step. I'm now almost 19 years old. I'm going to go and take a risk. But he said 8 words that I'd love to share with you that define my life to go on to become a head coach on the Olympic program, own my own 20,000 square foot training center, train over 70,000 people, make $13 million in 16 months, not because I was better than you, but those 8 words were, somebody has to do it, why not you? Somebody has to do it, why not you? Now bring the two together. You were made of the best, and somebody's going to do it. Make it you.
Well, what a way to end it. You should have just everybody give our panelists a round of applause, please. Thank you guys for your contributions. Thank you, audience, for your time, your effort, and your energy for being here with our Coach 360 panel where we were talking about trends in 2026. These guys are going to be hanging out for a little while. I'm going to make them so that if you have questions, you can come up and ask them on our next little 5-minute break, right?